The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon, Houston. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. We've got an incredible show for you this afternoon. I got to tell you, our first expert, I was thinking the other day, because we do a lot of shows, not only here in Houston, but across the country. And we do a lot of legal shows, bankruptcy, criminal law, family law, personal injury. But I was thinking, we're doing a estate planning show this afternoon. And I think, and I promise you, I'm not just saying this, I think estate planning is the most important area of law. And I never really thought about it until just recently. And we are so blessed to have one of the finest estate planning attorneys, I'd say, in the state of Texas. Let me introduce you to attorney Julia Dean.
Good afternoon. Thank you. It's very kind of you.
Julia, I really wholeheartedly mean this. I think estate planning is the most important area of law because you have people's future in your hands and everybody is different.
You're right. And I think people don't realize the importance of it until they haven't done it or a loved one hasn't done it, and then they deal with the fallout of that. And so being able to, and I have the privilege of doing this, being able to proactively and strategically plan to avoid issues and really maximize someone's legacy and avoid disability problems, all of that just is a tremendous just blessing for me. And I hope it is for my clients as well. But I do think it is just a very important area of law. I mean, each of them have their own merits, but I think this is one that touches everybody. And that doesn't always happen in some other areas of law, but everyone should do their estate plan. Everyone does need to think about the impact of their life, even if they're single. You know, what kind of legacy do they want to leave? Do they want to leave it to charity or certain other loved ones? So we can have an impact in our world and with our family by what we do with our estate plan. And that's really exciting.
There's a lot of different areas within estate planning. There's elder law, there's wills, there's trust, there's probate. Tell everybody about your firm.
So our firm does all of that because really estate planning does encompass all those areas. So not only are we dealing with how does an estate flow, what kind of legacy do we want to leave? We're doing disability protection. We're looking at probate. You know, so if someone didn't do a will or something's going through the probate system, which is a court system where all wills have to go through probate, whether they're done through an attorney or not. And so that's going through the court process of validating your will and allowing the person named to actually have the power to deal with the assets inside the trust. And then guardianship is another aspect of this. If someone hasn't done their planning and usually as part of their estate plan, we're doing some disability planning, whether it's through trust or powers of attorney, like financial and medical powers of attorney. So if they haven't done that, then our only other option, if we need to get access to those funds, is to go to court and get a guardianship over you. That's a guardianship of the estate. And if they don't have anyone in place to handle the medical or living decisions, then we need a guardian of the person. And so both of those are very expensive and time-consuming kinds of court involvement in people's lives, that if we can avoid that, what a great benefit that is. So trust planning allows us to avoid those things.
That's one of the things I love about your firm, that you try to keep your clients out of probate.
Absolutely. Right. And sometimes it's not that bad, but you still have the delay and the cost of that. Why do that when you could avoid all that, have the privacy, have the people you want to name, handling this on your behalf? Most of the times they're appointing trusted family members or friends, or even a corporate trustee if there's no need for court involvement in that. So I love that.
I'm a big news nut, and I got to tell you, it's so sad seeing how many people have passed what I call a younger age, in the 60s, in their 50s, even athletes. And it just seems like I wonder if these people planned, I'm sure they didn't plan on passing so early in life, but I wonder if they had a plan. And I don't know why. I always think about, I wish they would have had Attorney Dean, because I don't know. I just figure sometimes that people in their early 50s don't really think about estate planning.
I think you're right. Most people come into me right before they're about to retire, or they have just retired. But unfortunately, our lives don't always end up that way. And sometimes even very young people are passing away and they do have assets, or they're disabled. And had we planned, we wouldn't have this guardianship. So it's always best to plan right away and then modify your plan over time. And so we can tweak it, or we can totally revamp it even. But it's better to have something in place than nothing in place. So it is really good that you're reminding people this is so important right now. And we do see that when we see those news stories of people who have passed away, even people with lots of money and wealth and assets, and have no estate plan in place. And what an incredible mess they've left with their loved ones who are fighting each other, and it's just dividing families. And that's just so sad to see, when I see my role as coming in and avoiding those problems so that we can have family harmony, and do my best that I can to anticipate every single issue that could arise and deal with it beforehand, so that there's no question as to what will happen in a certain situation, and making sure everything we do is minimizing the tax implications as much as we possibly can too, so that we're helping the family, we're not hurting the family.
I think a lot of our listeners who've been listening to you or watching your show for a long time just fall in love with you, love the way you educate them. And I was wondering, because I got a note the other day, which we gave them your office number. What if somebody is in Texas, but they're in a different city? Can you help them?
Yes, I can. Fortunately, right now we can do so much through remote kinds of things, through a Zoom. It's nice if we can do the signing. One of the appointments, usually that's 1 out of 3 appointments we'll have together in person, but we don't even have to do that. So we can arrange it where we can have, witnesses or notaries or online notaries. We do have one online notary, so we can do it anywhere in the world. And sometimes we do need to do that because we have people in the military or working with other companies overseas, and they're doing a trust here, and they're getting all their protection documents or disability protection documents in place. And yet they're not going to be in town for another year or two. So we were able to do it remotely, which is a great benefit to them.
There was another question asked by a listener wanting to know how long is the initial consultation? I know they have to bring in a lot of paperwork with them, but how long is the first meeting with a new client?
That's a good question. So I want to focus our consultation time on education and really doing what's best for you and your situation. So I ask you to fill out a questionnaire, and it is fairly comprehensive. But the reason why I do that is I could spend an hour and a half or 2 hours getting that information for you, or I could spend that same time educating you. And so that's really what I want to do, and provide the best options. So once I have that, I review that before I even meet with you. And then when I come in, I can find out if there's any more information I need to know. And then I can go over those best options that I see for you. If it was my situation and I was in your place, this is what I would recommend. And then, of course, then you have the option of deciding one way or another, but you know what the options are. And so usually it lasts about an hour and a half is our typical estate planning consultation. Sometimes it lasts longer depending on the extensive nature of your estate. So sometimes we may have a variety of assets and we might do different things with those. And so to talk about what's best for each asset. So if we have desires beyond just avoiding probate or disability protection, like maybe our desires are asset protection, or maximizing our retirement benefits. There are trusts that I can put in place. Or maybe we want to do something with the charities that we love and helping them. So there's different things I can do there. So that may take a little longer to go over, but usually we're seeing about an hour and a half.
Julie, I picture you with this long checklist in your mind.
In my mind, for sure, for sure. And I do usually use a presentation, or I'll be drawing something, because I think it's helpful to see pictures and diagrams, things that make sense. So, my trust, I tell you, I think of it like a bucket. Well, I have a bucket on the screen so you can see, kind of just visualize what's happening, because I think that's so important, because sometimes these are concepts people have never heard about or talked about before. So, if we can make it just fun, and more easy to understand, then that's great. That's my goal.
Well, I bring up this big checklist you have in your head. This is not something you want to try to do on your own. If you do, you're going to miss out on so many areas that you never even thought of. Today, we're going to be talking about maximizing retirement assets. And it's a large portion of most people's assets are in their retirement funds. Do we need to think about these assets differently when we plan our estate?
We do. So generally, our home and our retirement assets are our biggest assets. And the retirement assets oftentimes have not been fully taxed. So if we have traditional IRAs or 401ks, they have not been taxed yet, the income tax. We have delayed taxation on them. So that comes out through the process of required minimum distributions, which we'll talk about more in a minute. So because of the different taxation, we want to deal with them differently, because we want to maximize the tax benefits by minimizing the taxation. And so we can do that through some planning.
Are there a lot of ways to minimize the tax impact?
There are. So, we had more options before the Secure Act came along, but we still do. So when I talked about the required minimum distributions, that's the period of time that we have to pay out those taxes we haven't paid yet. So let's say when we turn right now 72, we have to start taking out a certain amount that the government forces out, or they penalize us quite heavily, and they tax us on that amount. So let's say they decide we have a 25-year life expectancy, then they'll take out 1/25 of that, and then we pay tax on that. But the remainder continues to compound tax deferred. And so there's a benefit to leaving it in as long as possible and only taking out what we have to and paying tax on that. So if we can give that same benefit to our children or our other loved ones, grandchildren or whoever, and stretch it out as long as we possibly can, the tax benefits, we have even longer to allow that asset to grow without having to pay so much on taxes. Now, with the Secure Act, most people, except our spouses, have to take it out within 10 years. But our spouse, if it rolls over to them, can still have a full life expectancy to pay out their own life expectancy to pay out the taxes. If we have someone chronically ill, or we have a special needs individual, they can have their full life expectancy as determined by IRS tables, not their actual life expectancy. So let's say it goes to a special needs child and they determine they have a 70-year life expectancy. Now we only have to pay 1/70th of that each year, or that first year, and then at 1/69th. And it continues to compound tax deferred. And what a great benefit we can pass along, especially to our chronically ill and special needs individuals and our spouses. But it's still a great benefit even for our other beneficiaries that have to take it out in 10 years. Now, if it's going to our child and they're a minor child, we get to combine the benefits. So we get to start with a life expectancy stretch. So maybe that's 80 years. And we're taking out just a little bit of it until they turn 21. And then we have 10 more years to take the rest out. So it can't be a grandchild, just a minor child that gets that hybrid kind of benefit there. So if we can stretch this out as long as possible, that's how we minimize the tax impact and we maximize how much that tax can grow, or that account, that retirement account can grow.
Could you talk about retirement inheritance trust?
Yes. Yeah. So that is a great way that we can combine getting the best tax benefits on what we give to someone else and combine that with the trust protections. So those are protections like asset protection, so protection from any creditor out there, predators, judgment, as well as divorce protection. So if they go through a divorce, the court can't take it and give it to the divorcing spouse. We know it's kind of like there's an invisible force field around it and no one can get through to it. And then whatever's in that trust and any growth in that, whatever they don't use will pass on down to the next generation, estate tax free. So we can set it up where there's actually dynasty trust, where it goes from generation to generation, and allow that to grow. And that's how we really maximize those retirement trust or retirement funds, because not only are we maximizing the protections around that, but we're minimizing the taxes and allowing it to grow, in some ways very fast. It used to be exponentially when we had a life expectancy with a grandchild, but now we can, still have a great benefit over the years of growth, compounded growth.
What if I wanted, say, to change the beneficiaries? Could I do that?
So good question, because the retirement inheritance trust is an irrevocable trust. But the good thing about that is I can say yes to that. Normally we can say no. The way we can do that is it's an irrevocable trust, but it only goes into the trust by beneficiary designations. So the nice thing is the retirement funds stay in your name during your lifetime. So you still have full access to it like you would normally. You're still taking out like you normally would and paying taxes you normally would. But when it comes to your beneficiaries upon your passing, now it's through beneficiary designation. So if you want to change that during your lifetime, we can. And what we do is we create a new trust. Now we say we want it all to go to the grandkids now because the kids are just fine. So now we direct it directly to the grandkids in a new trust. We do redirect the beneficiary designation, and basically the old trust just lapses and we just go into the new trust. So even though it's irrevocable, I can get around that by creating a new trust and redirecting the beneficiary into the new trust. So in essence, it's really revocable during their lifetime while they have capacity.
What if I don't need the required minimum distributions? What would you suggest we do with them just to make sure we maximize our legacy for our family?
So there's a variety of things we can do, which is really awesome. One of them is if you want to benefit charities, you can do a direct qualified charitable distribution to the charity. It's called an IRA, charitable rollover, and it's going directly from the institution that holds your IRA funds, and it will go directly to the charity. So it doesn't come to you. So the IRS doesn't tax it to you. It comes off of your taxes. It satisfies the required minimum distribution, decreases your taxable income, and you can do that up to the amount of $100,000 each year. So that's something you can do during your lifetime. Some people like to take it, they pay their required minimum distributions, they have this extra, they don't really need it. So another option is they could fund an irrevocable life insurance trust. And sometimes we do that. We pay the premiums with that. Now we're buying, maybe a couple $1 million life insurance policy that will later give an income tax. And because it's in a trust, an estate or death tax-free distribution into that trust with the life insurance proceeds. And now we have tax-free money for the beneficiaries. And so we give them even better benefit than getting the retirement funds themselves. As it comes out, we're making that payment. So that's an option. We also have charitable trust. I mentioned just the charitable gift during your lifetime, but you could also do charitable trust upon death, where you give, you can do direct payments, or you can do trust if you want to benefit people and charities. There's certain kinds of trusts where we can benefit people during their lifetime, and then it goes to the charities. Or we can flip that. Let's benefit the charity for a certain number of years, like 20 years, and then it goes back to our beneficiaries. So if we want really the corpus of it, or the bulk of it, to go to our descendants, we flip it and we do a charitable lead trust. So there's a variety of ways we can do that. And sometimes we just use those funds that we don't need and we put it into a gifting trust for one of our children, grandchildren, other loved ones. And we start building an inheritance for them in an asset protected, divorce protected environment that has within it those dynasty trusts that can pass on down. And I can also set it up where it's taxed individually to the beneficiary as opposed to at tax trust rates. So we can set it up in different ways to maximize the protections as well as the tax planning, minimize the taxes. And if we want to benefit charities with our required minimum distributions or our bulk of it upon our death, we can do that too. So, I love those variety of options that we can do with our retirement funds. And the ILIT that I talked about, the Irrevocable Life Insurance Trust, can be used for gifting. It can be used for life insurance. It can be used for a variety of things. So sometimes we combine that one. So there's a lot of strategies that we can use. So what I like to do is just, okay, let's find out, what do you want to do? What are your desires? Who do you want to benefit? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? And then we go ahead and we set up your plan based on that. So we have a lot of options out there, which is great. And we can really maximize your retirement of when you pass, but also now, how do we minimize the taxes for you?
We just got a text in from John in Friendswood wanting to know, do you ever do seminars?
Yes, I do. I do a lot of seminars and speaking. I'm happy to do that. Feel free to reach out to my office at 281-277-3326, or you can go to our website, which is juliadeanlaw.com. So JuliaDeanLaw.com. And I love speaking. I love being able to educate. And so just, reach out to me and I'm happy to do that.
It's very obvious. Well, as always, our show goes by so fast. Let's give people your phone number and your website address again.
Okay. It is 281-277-3326. And the website is juliadeanlaw.com. And we look forward to meeting you someday.
Julia, we are so blessed to have you. Have a wonderful weekend. And Julia's show will be on again with us next week with more Ask the Experts. Thanks, Julia.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
That's attorney Julia Dean. She is, listen, if you are a family member or a friend, needs somebody to sit down and map out your future, She is wonderful. That does it for us this week. We'll be back with you again next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.